It is time for another mystery meat sack analysis. This is number 4, I think. We had Amanda Horvath first. We had 2 with Jonah Dempsey, and today I'm joined by the amazing Leann Wolff, who's she's a really cool lady. She's helped me with a number of things over time, and getting to know her has been pretty cool. So today, and a bit about mystery meat sack. So setting these folks up for success, or at least setting expectations for you, the viewer, you already know who is going to be analyzed because it's going to be in the thumbnail, it's going to be in the title, it's going to be in the body. So you already know. However, my friend Leann here doesn't know who this person is, other than seeing their body graph. So everything that she's saying is based on just reading this chart and commenting on what or how this person might interact, behave, be motivated by. So I'm definitely excited to see what she's got to say. And here we go. Let's bring in Leann. Hey, Leann.
Sean, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
So we get to have some fun today.
Yep. Let's pull up this body graph.
Sure.
And you know what? Maybe I'll move this caption as well for now. What can you tell me about this particular?
So what I love about human design is it's mechanical, and then the animation that comes along is one of two things. It could be not self animation that we're animating the mechanical meat suit with, or it could be true self energy that we are animating the meat suit with. So I'm going to kind of just bump around and we're going to move through it. If you have questions as I do that, Sean, can you just throw them out there?
Yep.
I'm going to bring up the chart on my end and I'm just going to chat. So first off, it is the energy field of a projector. So what a projector really truly at the heart and soul of who they are, they're designed to be advisors. And their auric field is so very much it's like they penetrate in and they absorb the other person at a level that is really, really profound. So when they interact one-on-one with people, they have this capacity to go deep into the energy field of the other person and then be able to extrapolate what it is from that energy field so that they can then guide and assist that person on how to use their energy, like what is best for them to respond to and to utilize that energy field so that they feel satisfaction. So with this particular advisor, it's quite interesting because there's lots of activity in the undefined sacral center and the undefined throat. So my guess here is this person has a tendency to try to be and operate like a manifesting generator. And they try very deeply to try to be busy, 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 and working because it's a very much a conditioned aspect of who they are. What I also see here is that they may at times feel like they are directionalists, that they maybe not have the love or the self-love for themselves that they know is within them, but they don't see it in their environment. They haven't been able to pick up on people really showing them that love. So then they think that they're unlovable and that their direction that they need to follow other people. And by doing that, what takes place for this particular person is they start to get lost on the material plane. They start to try to prove themselves, and they're working really, really deeply to prove who they are, prove that, they are lovable, that what they do in the world and the work that they quote unquote do in the world is really important. And most of the time, they're going to be taking unaligned action. It's going to be unaligned action where they are, again, deeply trying to prove who they are and working for someone else's direction. And they get lost in that direction instead of leaning into their own way and their own influential movement in the world. They have a tendency to operate from anxiety versus being really grounded in their own emotional energy field. They get really quite anxious and uncertain. So that uncertainty pulls them down paths that aren't correct for them. And they're chasing inspiration instead of leaning into being motivated to learn, being motivated to, be influential in their lives. They get really caught up in chasing everybody else's inspiration. So again, I don't know who this person is, and I don't know if you know them outside of our interaction here, but it's interesting to see how the not self will pull them off, and how the not self will, the conditioning will take them out of the advisor role into the worker role. So they'll be trying deeply to work instead of sitting back and advising. And that advisor role really is, it's about waiting for the invitation. So the strategy of waiting for the invitation is all about understanding. And I hope that I can transmit this to your projectors that may be watching this, is 20% of the population are projectors. And they have this deep capacity to go into the energy field of the manifesting generators and generators. And because of that, what is really key for the projector advisor type is that they don't take anything personally, because those manifesting generators or generators are designed to be really concerned about who am I? And they can get caught up in that muse of who am I? And because of that, sometimes the invitation is not available to the projectors, because those generators and manifesting generators get so caught up in their own energy field. And then what happens is that projector starts to take that personally. They start to take it personally. Nobody's inviting me. Nobody wants me in their space, blah, blah, blah. And it's not about the projector. It's actually about the manifesting generator and the generator, who actually isn't ready to see themselves at the depths that a projector can see them. Does that make sense, Sean?
Yeah. I'm even thinking about personal interactions with a couple of projectors in my life. So yeah. Yeah.
And then what happens is that projector starts to take that on personally, and then like this particular projector is trying so hard to prove themselves that they will give unsolicited advice, which lands on deaf ears, because that generator or manifesting generator doesn't have the capacity to really understand themselves as deeply as this projector does. So then the projector or advisor falls into this bitterness. They don't know what invitations are correct for them. And they start to lose themselves in the doing instead of pulling back out into that capacity to view from the outside of the group, view from the outside so that they can guide the energy. They get really caught up in the energy.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular projector is beautifully set up to actually help the tribe, like with a deep transformational process where patterns And being alert to the pattern actually is something that they are very, very good at. And this particular projector can really sniff out talent. That's their entire design. Like, that's their whole incarnation cross. That 32 is that talent. They can really understand, who are we going to invest our time and energy into, because whomever they invest their time and energy into actually will move up the ladder and will be able to, use their talents for the good of the tribe. And they do this by tapping into that deep invitation and then trusting their own inner authority of this emotional solar plex, of grasping the correct emotion that they want to move forward into the invitation with. So there can be lots of melancholy that happens here. And that melancholy actually is a space where the projector can give themselves, this particular projector can give themselves that space to really get clear on that influence of the 31, and really being able to remember the past and bringing those past experiences into the influential way that they are going to guide and advise others on this material plane of the 62, so that that assessment process could happen through the projector energy of the 20. Okay. And then from there, what they're going to notice is, once that emotion, they understand the emotion, and they only take, those invitations inside the correct emotional energy. Now, all of a sudden, the other person has a capacity to hear that influential energy, to accept the intimacy of the 59, and the self-actualization process that can happen with the 42. Because the projector and advisor energy is all about getting really good at asking questions. So this particular projector, when they start to ask the question, what are you committed to? What are you using your energy for? What cycles do you notice you can never close out in your life? And where do you have issues with your intimate interactions with others? Now, all of a sudden, what they're doing is they're really allowing those questions to then help that other being lean into that energy field, because this projectors had to learn that in their lives. They've had to learn commitment. They've had to learn where they're investing their time and energy. They've had to learn how to close off cycles. And they've also had to learn how to use their intimate energy, and recognize that boundaries are not about them. Boundaries are about the other person not being ready and willing to open up to that intimate activity. So this particular sacral questioning field helps that other person get clear on what they're committing to, because the commitment then allows for the intimacy to be present. It allows for the correct management of energy to happen, and it allows for the correct cycles to come to an end. What are some thoughts happening there?
Well, I've been taking notes, so I was just waiting for. I didn't want to interrupt. Okay, let's start with the top of my list. So, because I'll bounce right back, and then naturally that's my style, I suppose, for design. But one thing you said right off the bat, you made me think of some of the projectors in my life and their eyes. Like, there's an intensity in their eyes when they look at me.
Yeah.
And when I think of this person, there's an intensity in this person's eyes in every visual I've ever seen. So that's kind of interesting. Like, I've had a few that sort of look at me and it feels like they're staring through me. And sometimes it's a good look, and sometimes it's a repulsive look. And
Mm.
so that was interesting right off the bat. The other thing I want to jump to, because there's several types of projectors, right? I think
Yes.
five, six types. And you said something about identity, and is there, would a projector ever have a defined G, or would
Yes.
they would? Okay, so what kind of
Yep.
projector would that be?
So you can have self-projected projectors that have that, as well as the ego projector.
Okay,
Like any projector could, but those two types, if they have that, the ego projector is connected from the 5125,
right.
and what they do is they actually listen to their own will around what the correct invitation is going to be. And then the self projected is from the G center to the throat. They could have the ajna center and the head center as well, but they spontaneously speak their the correct like their inner authority spontaneously speaks around that invitation. Like if it's correct, they will spontaneously speak it, yes or no, whether that's correct or not for them.
Hmm.
And with the self projected, one thing that I've really noticed, and this was like very early in my working with clients, is the tone and cadence of a self projected projector is so important to listen to, because they will override their internal knowing to accept or decline invitations because of the conditioning field. So what I mean by that is you might invite them to lunch and they're like, "Yeah, I'd love to come for lunch." And their voice changes. Instead of actually leaning in and honoring the truth of who they are, they will change the tone and the cadence and the pitch of their voice when it is not a truthful, correct answer for them.
So it'll sound forced or
Yep.
fake.
And
Yeah.
yep.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. What'd you say? Very busy working. You said something about feeling unloved or unlovable.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
once I point out who this person is, I want to circle back to that, because there's something there that's very interesting, I think.
Okay.
Um, Operating from anxiety. Where
Mm-hmm.
is that coming from in the body graph? Because I feel like I operate from anxiety, and I'm not a projector. So is that the open head and ajna? Is it
It's the undefined ajna center, like the open ajna center. Yeah.
right?
The ajna center has the anxiety built into it. And then, of course, we see that there is the 62 pointing to the 17, the 63 pointing to the 4, the 61 pointing to the 24. So there is this pressurized anxiety that can happen to then take action.
Mm-hmm.
So they will try to take action based off of that anxiety and this deep-seated unlovability inside of them. So those two things will be pushing them to then prove themselves, work harder, and then they lose focus because they don't really understand the profound aspect of being a projector or an advisor.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, and I mean, part of the reason I do this is to continue learning about human design and also just try to understand myself. But so with
Yeah.
an open head and ajna, like no gates leading to it, uh, like anxiety is a huge thing for me that I've been learning to curb.
Yeah.
I almost feel jealous of people that have some sort of hook they can hook onto. And like, these little gates are almost like, oh, you could latch onto that and at least work on something. I don't even know what to work on around my anxiety because it's of the openness. Or is that a benefit for me?
So I also have a totally open head in Ajna Center as well.
Hmm.
Your design has nothing pointed up there. I do have the 56 pointed up there. But I don't know if you want to bring up your chart just so that people can see it. It's totally up to you if you want to do that.
Yep.
But so there's a couple things here. what's really healthy for you is, with that totally open head, totally open ajna center, is to recognize that there's a clean filtration system here. That if uncertainty tries to creep in, just let it flow through. Because that's what the ajna center, when you and I try to conceptualize something, we have nothing to grab onto to conceptualize. However, it also is a massive benefit to us, because when we're looking at the world and we're interacting with the world, we are able to allow for everything to process through those two centers, and then we can be objective. There's no subjective way to grasp on and then, oh, this concept is the only concept and blah, blah, blah. Like, our quote unquote minds can be changed based off of what's going on. So that's why it's important for you and I, don't get caught up in the of the change of the mind. Drop into the profound wisdom of the sacral center to guide you on where to use your energy and where not to use your energy.
Yeah. Last couple of weeks, I've been leaning into that hard, and that makes there's ease coming. I also find like I'm just like an idea machine. Like I just have no attached way of thinking, and some ideas are terrible, but some of them are like really interesting. Like, even to me, like, I'm surprised I came up with it.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting to hear myself come up with it, to be honest, which is kind of a trip. But when I think about how heavily conditioned I was before, and black white thinking, like that was how I was raised, was just very, it's this or that, and I was so out of alignment. So it's pretty freeing.
And what I would say, like, in regards to that, the idea aspect, like, write them down, but don't get attached to them, because you are just a clean filter for them to flow through. Now, if it is yours to then produce out into the consciousness field, you will be asked for it. There will be a request of your energy. So lean into, our ideas just flowing through me because they need a clean, open receptacle to flow to whoever they need to flow to? Or is this for me because there is a response from my physical body and people are actually requesting that I engage with this idea? Right? Because ideas can have us chasing a whole bunch of shit that isn't actually for us. Excuse my language.
Well, that's okay. Well, and I know exactly what, like, I've started businesses and projects and ideas, and I think I was bored, and but then I want to carry them through, right? Because I don't let go. But I'm learning to. So yeah, very interesting. Okay, well, I want to get back to this person, because some time there. But the operating anxiety is pretty interesting. Chasing inspiration, you said, help the tribe with the transformation process.
Yep.
I'll circle back to that one later too, because that's, even when I just think about certain things about this person, that's just, even the word tribe really pops out. So that's interesting. And then sniffing out talent. Where is that in the body graph, or where's the clue for that?
That's gate 32.
Okay.
And sniffing is 44. So the 32 and the 44 are like the personnel and the finance managers. Who we going to invest our time in, and which person is correct to move up the ladder. That's really what the tribe is always concerned about. And this particular, projector energy has the fuel for, bringing that transformation, and also the fuel for what's the next revolution that needs to take place? And how can we just, hone in on one sensation, one feeling, and contract down to honoring one person at a time, one person at a time, and moving them up into the spaces that need to be so that the next person can come along.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have the 32.
Mm-hmm.
He has got, giving away one clue. Whoops. So he has the whole channel.
I still don't know who it is. So.
Yeah, no, that's not much of a clue. That's just now, but so he has the full channel there. I never picked up. I dig into like a channel or a gate and spend some time there. 32 is not one I've spent, I think, any time with. So that's interesting. The sniffing out of talent, I definitely see that in myself. Like I've quickly just known who to work with. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, if I were to look at this chart just a little bit deeper, they have their Chiron in gate 37, both the personality and the design. Chiron is in gate 37 and they have the 40. So what this person will definitely, like, the Chiron is the wounded healer, right? Mm-hmm. So they're constantly bumping into friends and family that want to force them into making a promise that they will promise to provide, that they will promise to work really hard, because the 40 does want to provide, it does want to work hard. However, because it's in the undefined ego center, it can't do that consistently. It has to be invited into it. Mm-hmm. So friends and family will be one of the largest conditioning fields here around, like, what is the correct work? Who do I provide for? Who do I not provide for? So this will be a big learning factor for this person, because of course they're the Pluto with gate 40. That's their truth and transformation. So they transform themselves, and their truth lies in knowing, when to work and when not to work. Mm-hmm. And who they are going to, quote unquote, provide and support for. So this particular person, if their friends and family are not serving them and trying to get them to operate like a manifesting generator, trying to force them to work and to do, there's going to be, consequences there. And usually the consequence is going to be around the stomach of the 40. The 40 is the stomach. So there can be ulcers happening there. And of course, then we bring in the anxiety aspect. So this person can have like ulcers. They can be, again, a lot of adrenal fatigue, because there's so much pressure and fuel here in the root. We usually take what's defined in us, and we take our conditioning and we stuff it in there. So this particular person can have autoimmune diseases. This particular person can be completely burnt out. Their adrenal glands can be absolutely wore out. And that's all from the anxiety and pressure to provide.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, why don't I reveal who this is? And then...
will I even know this person? I don't even know if I'll know this person.
I'm sure you will have heard of them. But and it's not like I know this person either. But I can't remember how to get a picture in here. Oh, here we go. But I can speak to at least what I know I've seen of this person. I think that's kind of fun. So here we go. So it's this fella named Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay.
He's a very dynamic individual. Why is that? Why can't you be in the picture here?
I don't see you either.
Yeah, weird. Okay, well, I will turn that off. And there we are. So Flea. So he's the bass player for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But a very colorful, dynamic, high energy, like quite comfortable on stage, basically naked in front of 40,000 people, right? Like very very high energy. A history with drug abuse and I think heroin. Been in a couple of movies and stuff. But also a multi-talented musician and came from a very musical family as well. And it wasn't silly. Like when you start talking about some of these things, like I'm not a projector, but I get anxiety and or
Yes.
I get the idea of anxiety, and I can actually see it in him. I can recognize various things that we share as well. So that's very interesting. Um, yeah.
So here's a little bit about what I would say around the drugs. The 55th gate. So he has the 3955.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's such a provocative, like provoking channel, I shouldn't say provocative, it's provoking. And with being a 2-4, he has this natural talent. And yet he is shy because that's what the 2 does. It creates this shyness in the person because they're so naturally so gifted. So what has been really recognized with gate 55 is because it is the fear of silence. Many people that hold this gate end up having a few things. They can have eating disorders because they don't know how to process their own emotions. So they will eat, trying to get the carbohydrates to, make that emotion more dense, to slow down the spikes that happen. The 55 also has a tendency to abuse drugs because, again, not understanding how to process the emotion. They will try to numb out the emotion.
Hmm.
And then there's a lot of shopping addictions here as well, where it's always trying to fill, right? The not self is always trying to fill a gap. So
Mm-hmm.
when there's silence, it tries to fill a gap with something, whether that be food, drugs, unhealthy sex. Those kind of things can happen. Food with that 55. So, in saying that, and of course, him operating from this space of deep conditioned anxiety and this unlovability, and then trying to prove himself. Once he leans out of that and goes into his own spirit and really can connect with his emotions and understand that he's designed to be melancholic,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because in the melancholy, there's the space there. And what melancholy gives us the space for is for the creative muse to then come out into the world. But my guess is along the way, because he has the 59, he actually uses a lot of unhealthy sexual relationships because again, I'm just making general assumptions,
Mm-hmm.
is like there's probably not many boundaries for the people that follow that band. So because people don't have boundaries and they don't stop his intimate pursuits, he's probably trying to fill himself with the drugs and with the sex, is my guess.
Yeah, I think they've been clean for a long time, but yeah, I don't know about the sex, but it
Right.
makes sense. I mean, they're
Yeah.
certainly afforded opportunities regularly, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's interesting. Well, like I don't know if you remember, but I've got the 55, and yeah, that melancholy is very interesting. I have the 19 and the 41 too, so I didn't
Yes.
actually notice until we were looking at this today that was some similarities I have. I have the open solar plexus though, of course. So
And open root. Yep.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And the 19 is all about having the fuel to create actually a revolution. And to the 19 wants to flirt to flirt out that revolution. And then the 41 is all about like, it's imaginative, and it has lots of fantasies with it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like contracting down to one. That's why the manifesting generators in trendy human design have been given some really bad information around, go be multi-passionate. Well, even Ra said in so many of his transmissions was human beings, including manifesting generators, we are designed to do one thing at a time. And gate 41, because it's the start codon, it's telling us that
Mm-hmm.
one thing at a time. Move through to the satisfaction or dissatisfaction of the process, and then come back and start a new process. But
Mm-hmm.
when we scatter our energy out, that's when things start to go awry.
Yeah, that resonates deeply for me, and it's the process I'm going through of just being so out of alignment, having so many things I was trying to do, task lists everywhere, um, and trying to avoid task lists because I just was overwhelmed by them. But at the same time, I actually need them. I need to remember
Yes.
where to pick up on something, because I
Right.
can only take that energy so far, and then I'm like, ugh,
Yep.
boring, and I move on. But then if I start the whole process over, like where did I leave off and what loose ends? So it is a constant struggle for me right now, but one that I'm starting to really see and trying to build some
Mm-hmm.
habits and stuff around. But it's tough to get out of that wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
hmm,
and lists really are good for, especially for an undefined root and an undefined head center or open head center. Lists are good.
hmm,
And now it's to recognize that the list is there, but to trust the body's response to engage with the list,
hmm,
right? That's key.
totally. Like I feel pressure all the time to just be like, okay, I've finished one thing, move on to another, which
Mm-hmm.
route I get. So now it's like, no, I'm gonna go for a walk, and whatever I feel like doing after that is, or whatever I respond to when I get back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so another interesting thing, like I'm trying to make sense of, so I'm in my Chiron return. Not
Mm-hmm.
like, you ever leave your Chiron return, or does it just that these are all the things that happen, the changes, and then I take it with me? Because I'm a 3-5, but
Mm-hmm.
my Chiron return I'm a 2-4, and
So I'm just going to tweak your language a little bit there. You
yeah,
don't become a 2-4.
right,
The 2-4 energy is there to support you in your Chiron return.
okay,
So anytime we see a cycle, like they always come with us because it's like our progression in life.
hmm,
It kind of shows us our evolution. So the Chiron return at this particular moment in time is there supporting you, empowering you, and sharing with you. It will, do that through the energy field, but it'll also do that through human beings.
hmm,
People will come into your life. You will be educated on things so that you can now lean deeper into and allow for your natal chart to flower.
hmm,
And it's going to flower with the support, empowerment, and sharing of the Chiron return.
hmm. Yeah, I mean, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm naturally and natively a 3-5,
Yes.
and that doesn't lead me. So because I'm only starting to understand it, so it'd suck if all of a sudden I had to just abandon it. So,
Right.
so that's not accurate, but as a 2-4, like two is kind of the natural, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and the 4 is that opportunist. Like people just
Yep.
like, and that's happening for me. I'm
Yes.
making all sorts of cool connections with people and kind of doing it with ease versus instead of torture what it used to be. So
Yep.
um, it's kind of fun watching that play out. So,
Right.
and I'm doing way less. And at
Yes.
the end of the day, I'm doing way less and getting way more by relaxing into it. So,
Yep. And that's the beauty of design. The longer you're in it,
hmm,
the more you recognize that relaxation. is key, because our cellular structure, when it is tense and has all the junk and it's holding on all the stuff, it cannot be receptive to anything, because it's like there's this big old fat barrier around it. But once we relax and clean out the cellular structure, now all of a sudden new opportunities can find us. You know, more natural gifts can show through us. And your 3 is constantly just going to be testing those out. Oh, what, you know, the gifts that I have and the talents that are innately in me, I'm just going to test that out. And you're doing that right here, right now.
Yeah.
You know, and creating a channel on a space where you're going to be able to go and take this message to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. That is what the 5 desires so deeply, because the 5 wants to universalize. Right.
Interesting. The tribe thing was interesting too. One thing about Flea and the Chili Peppers is it's funk music. A lot of their stuff is built around a lot of their sound, I'd argue, is around sort of a Native American tribal, especially their earlier albums. It was very tribal feeling, very funky. When he plays, he's jumping up in the air and he's dancing, and he's a high energy person. And even, maybe it's a misunderstanding or a misconception I have about projectors, but like projectors only have so much energy, right? But I guess it would be safe to say that someone like that, talented, hardworking, is he soaking in the energy of all the people in the crowd? Is that what's ultimately fueling him so that he can put on a show like that? Like,
yeah, he's using the sacral energy that's available. And he probably, again, I'm going to just make assumptions. I don't have a clue who this person is. But I'm going to say that most likely he would have, like, quote unquote energy hangovers. Hence the reason where, the drugs could then hype him up again for the next, concert the next day, because he would go through such a withdrawal of the energy field, and then the drugs pulls him back in, and then he's able to then reconnect with the sacral energy, and it's like this looping cycle that would go on. And not until he really recognized when enough is enough is when enough's going to be enough.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, I had an interesting conversation with a very successful projector the other day. And this person has created this ginormous projector community. Okay. But it's all projectors. And inside the community, there's a lot of bitterness happening, because these projectors are trying to pull the energy out of him. And I'm like, well, yeah, projectors are not designed to be in a community on their own, because there is no consistent sacral energy. So projectors need to connect with sacral energy. That's so deeply a part of who they are. However, they also need to know when to pull out of that energy and walk away from it.
So you can't be a sacral projector.
No.
Right.
Nope.
Is that the only center that would always be open?
Yes. Same with manifestors. You can have all of them except for the sacral. Same with a reflector. They have to have everything open. But projectors and manifestors, they do not have a defined sacral.
Okay. Interesting. Wow. It's interesting. When I was choosing someone, I was like, well, okay, I've done politicians. Actually, it's been a lot of musicians, but that hasn't actually been my my goal. It just kind of kept happening. And then I'm trying to think why I chose Flea. And I don't know. There's definitely some similarities in my design and his, despite being very different in other ways. So it's very interesting. I think my subconsciously knew what I was wanting to hear or
Right.
needing. So
Right.
awesome. Well, you know what? So he's got 3 arrows leaning left. I'm a quad left.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making some sense of all that these days, but can you speak to that with this person?
So for him, like when you say the body's going to be active, the environment's going to be active, yeah, with a design sun, earth, and nodal configuration that is left, like his body does enjoy activity. It does. It has 2 motors. It still needs to be able to um, use that activity of the body to release. However, it's important that he understand that he's using his energy field and not trying to drive his life through the sacral center.
Mm-hmm.
And with the anxiety and that open, a totally open ajna center, the left mind wants to be strategic. It wants to be focused. And because of that, and not having any fixed way of conceptualizing, there's another, caveat there around the anxiety that can create a lot of anxiety because his mind wants to be focused and strategic. And yet he has no way to hammer down or hold down a concept. So it can create a lot of anxiety. And then with the right nodal configuration of the personality, this is all about being able to see peripherally. So he's able to, look out into the crowd. And one really key factor for the projector is that they're designed to be one-on-one. So find a really clear, a really clean, crisp manifesting generator or generator. Put your energy towards that person, and then you can read the whole room. They can read the whole room, the projector can, through that open and enveloping energy. So that really could help him out with his peripheral view that's going on by finding someone clean in the audience, picking up on their energy field and allowing for that to be absorbed. And then he can really focus in on the whole room through that.
Interesting. The other note, and I meant to come back to this. You mentioned sort of this unlovable thing.
Yes.
I can think of many times where I've seen him on stage, and like as they're leaving the stage, he'll be like, "I love you, Anthony," and he like actually calls out his love for the lead singer in front of everyone, and they do this like response back every time, and it's like I always found that interesting. Like you're already on stage, you're already going to high five backstage because you've had a great show, but for whatever reason, I've seen him do that many times where he's just expressing love for his collaborators right on stage, right? Like,
Yeah.
is he saying it because he needs to hear it in return? Is that probably why he's doing that?
Yep.
Interesting.
My guess is that something happened in his life with that totally open G center. I also have a totally open G center, so I understand this. Is because there's no, again, no way to subjectively filter love, that we have this sense that we have to follow everybody else's path, and that it's everybody else's love that provides us with our own self-love.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is that something may have happened at an early age for him to, like, have that not self-conditioning and then say to other people, "I love you," hoping that someone else will say it back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's vulnerability, right? You're putting it out there, and
Yeah.
he probably knows he'd get it back from his collaborator. And those guys, I think they were famously like both drug addicts and supported each other and kind of went through that together. So that would be a pretty significant bonding experience, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm actually worn out, partly because I think I'm processing stuff in my own head as you're
Yes.
talking.
Yeah.
So and we're right in the we did well for time too. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
that was awesome. Thanks for playing. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. And I really didn't touch much on his head center and the 2 gates there, but that's okay.
Well, do you want to? We can.
He's, it really is just for him to lean into the inner truth and recognize that he has that energy for people to get suspicious. And that suspicion actually will allow for him to focus in on what is the correct pattern that will serve him as well. So that's.
And you know what? I do have a question because you mentioned Chiron, and
Yes.
how are you picking up from this information what is Chiron is, or is it using your own tool that
Yeah.
you picked up on that?
Yeah. I use the Maya mechanics.
Okay.
So I like to look at the Chiron because it gives a pretty clear indication of like what part may feel as though it needs to be the most repaired.
Mm-hmm.
And really for him it's friends and family that Chiron return. It's gate 37. So, they can provide him with his greatest amount of healing or his greatest amount of wounds.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, while we're on that, then, so I noticed in one of my apps there's a second Saturn return, and that's when I'm
Yes.
58. So I'm 51 now.
Yeah.
Finally coming online with some of this information. So I don't really understand what to expect at 58. Sounds like it's a whole like change again. This guy's already gone through it because he's like 60 at this point, I suppose. So,
Yeah.
um,
So what Saturn does is it disciplines us. Okay. So when we have our first Saturn return, like it's just showing up to say, now's the time to get to really go deeper into the design, right? And be the design. So how I see Saturn is because it's such a disciplinarian, we have to really understand our core values. And once we understand our core values, then Jupiter can bring us the prosperity. But if we don't understand our core values, Jupiter cannot bring us our prosperity. So then Saturn always feels like it's disciplining us all the time to go back to those core values, go back to those core values. So life cycles really are, we have different core values as we walk through our evolution of our lives.
Yep.
So it's to reestablish what are the core values now in this, second part of my life versus the first part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So that for me is really what the Saturn represents, is for us to just relook so that we're not disciplined in the last part of our existence.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's even really interesting. I've been digging into core values for the last 2 years, and it started as like a little Trello card on a board, and it would pop up and remind me. And then I went through several iterations. I'm just always tweaking, refining it, but it's interesting that is a theme that just keeps appearing every week. It's almost like I know I need to get that shit sorted out for then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe this time I'll be slightly ahead of schedule instead of figuring out human design and Chiron way late. Be a nice change.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Sean, if you're exhausted, I'm sorry. I do lay out quite a bit of information. I kind of just do that. That's who I am. So
No, it's awesome. No, I can feel it. Like whenever we talk, I have to, and the first time we met and you said something like, you're probably only going to remember about 5% of this. And I was like, no, I'm taking it all in. But when I watched it the second time, I was like, holy shit, how did I miss that last time? Like, very, so, yeah.
It's fun.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity, Sean. I
Thanks.
love it.
Bye.
Okay, bye.